Good evening, I'm Paul Hunter, and this is The National. Quebec strains to handle the crush of Haitian asylum seekers, but will Canada see them as refugees?
Do they have a well-founded fear of persecution today in Haiti?
The heartbreak of Andre de Grasse.
I was devastated when I heard the news.
Exclusive comments on his painful disappointment. Reports say a grand jury is now probing the Trump-Russia connection. The president tries to ignore it, but you'll see why he can't. Plus, do dead whales threaten Canada's reputation? They are nondescript roads in rural Quebec, ending where the United States begins. But in recent weeks, that border has become a hive of activity for asylum seekers looking for a new home. Many of the people streaming into Canada are Haitians, fearing deportation from the U.S. But as Alison Northcott reports tonight, there's no assurance they won't face a similar fate here.
It's a long wait for processing for those who have walked across the border into Quebec from the U.S. Nadine Montpremier was living in Florida, but left the U.S. with her family last month, worried her husband would be deported back to Haiti.
Scary, really scary. Because the first thing you're thinking, oh my God, my husband gonna go in Haiti, and he escaped in Haiti because he have persecution, he come here, and now they're gonna try to separate us.
The Quebec government says the number of asylum seekers has jumped in the past 2 weeks from about 50 a day to 150. The immigration minister says the province has seen spikes like this before and can manage the influx.
A quarter of these people generally are children. They're children that are going to need to go to school. We want to make sure our schools are ready to receive them. We want to make sure they get urgent care.
Community centers, student dorms, and even the Olympic Stadium have been transformed into shelters, housing 1,500 asylum seekers. The province has asked the federal government to speed up processing so they can move into permanent housing soon. 70% of the recent asylum seekers are originally from Haiti. Many had been protected from deportation from the U.S. following the earthquake in Haiti, but the current U.S. administration has signaled it may end that protection. This refugee lawyer says there's no guarantee those making refugee claims here will be allowed to stay.
It depends on the particular circumstances. So, first thing you need to look at is, do they have a well-founded fear of persecution today in Haiti? And if they do not, if they're afraid of poverty and destitution or high crime, most likely they'll be refused refugee status.
While those just arriving wait for their files to be dealt with, members of Montreal's Haitian community have stepped up to help.
Got peppers, toothbrush.
Collecting donations of clothing, food, and other necessities.
My parents are from Haiti, and I've always seen my parents always helping out people. So for me, it's like second nature.
A way to welcome hundreds of newcomers and prepare for even more. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
Well, just when you think it can't possibly get any more dramatic in Washington, there are more high-level leaks from the White House, including transcripts of phone conversations between President Donald Trump and other world leaders. And tonight, there are reports a grand jury may get involved in the Russia investigation. Stephen D'Souza has the latest from Washington.
Donald J. Trump!
With new leaks and new revelations in the Russia investigation, Donald Trump went to where he's most comfortable, at a rally with his supporters.
Are there any Russians here tonight? Any Russians?
The day started with Trump's awkward attempts at diplomacy laid bare. Transcripts of his conversations with world leaders were leaked to the Washington Post, including a call in January to Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto, where Trump repeatedly asked him to stop saying Mexico won't pay for the wall. If you're going to say that Mexico is not going to pay for the wall, then I do not want to meet with you guys anymore, because I cannot live with that. The Post also released a transcript of Trump's call with Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull, confirming earlier reports that Trump was unhappy with the refugee exchange deal. This is the most unpleasant call all day. Putin was a pleasant call. This is ridiculous. Even Canada got a mention. In the call with Mexico, Trump talked about trade with Canada, suggesting things were going so well that, quote, "We do not even think about them." But Trump likely is thinking about the Russia investigation. Today, the Wall Street Journal reported that special counsel Robert Mueller has impaneled a grand jury in Washington. Empowered to subpoena evidence and call witnesses, it's a major step towards possible criminal charges.
So it's encouraging for us on the House Intelligence Committee to see that Bob Mueller and his team continue to make progress, because that's all we want, is for them to get to the bottom of this.
There is already a grand jury looking into Michael Flynn. This new one has reportedly already gotten to work, issuing subpoenas in connection with Donald Trump Jr.'s meeting with a Russian lawyer at Trump Tower last year. The president, who has hinted at firing Mueller, continued tonight to dismiss the investigation.
The Russia story is a total fabrication.
Mueller is doing his job. He's taking this seriously. He's investigating it thoroughly, and he's going to get to the bottom of whatever happened. And if I were Donald Trump, I would not be a real happy camper.
All of this comes on a day when two bills were introduced in the Senate that would make it harder for Trump to get rid of Mueller. Bills that have the support of both Democrats and Republicans. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, Washington.
Today, the U.S. Senate confirmed Trump's nomination for the new ambassador to Canada. But before Kelly Knight Craft can take on her new role, she needs to present her credentials to Canada. The Governor General will then need to approve them, largely a formality. A scary situation in Dubai tonight, and one that may sound familiar. A huge fire has ripped through an 86-story residential building. Video posted to social media shows flames racing up the unfortunately named Torch Tower. Officials say they have successfully evacuated the building's 670 apartments. No injuries have been reported. This isn't the first time the tower has been engulfed. The Torch was also badly damaged by fire in 2015. The BC wildfires may be retreating, but the effects of them linger. Smoggy skies and diminishing air quality are key concerns across various parts of the province. Briar Stewart gives us an update.
Those spectacular views along the coast, well, they're a little less impressive today. Gone are the blue skies. Instead, there's a thick layer of haze blown in from the interior.
Well, you can't see any of the North Shore Mountains or anything. It's even like this out in South Surrey. We've got a complete haze. We haven't seen blue sky in 3 days.
So I was hoping I'd get away from it when I got to Vancouver, but now that I'm in Vancouver, it's chased me here too.
Well, it's not enough to ruin a day at the beach. It does have people thinking about being outside and the air they're breathing.
We have air conditioners at home, so, there's that, but kind of affects how we think about life in larger terms too with the climate change.
So this is one of our air quality stations. It's one of 29 air quality monitoring stations that we have in the region.
Today, Vancouver's air quality was measured as being high risk.
Really, the smoke brings fine particulate matter, so PM 2.5, which can be inhaled deeply into the lungs.
First responders say they've seen a slight increase in the number of respiratory calls they've been receiving this week.
We're telling people that have pre-existing medical problems like asthma or emphysema or pneumonia or bronchitis or even cardiovascular problems to reduce their strenuous activity outdoors.
However, to the northeast where the fires are burning, the air quality is substantially worse. At one point today in Kamloops, it was off the charts. On a scale of 1 to 10, it was a 47. Further north in Williams Lake, it was 21. As for Vancouver, for most of the day, the air quality sat at a 7. The smoke is expected to linger for the next few days, but with more than 120 fires still burning in the province, many communities will be stuck with the smoke and the hazy air for some time yet. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, it was supposed to be a final showdown, one last opportunity for Canadian Andre DeGrasse to take on Usain Bolt. But the dream of dethroning the world's fastest man has been dashed. Injury has sidelined the 22-year-old sprinter, and today he spoke exclusively to the CBC. Here's Thomas Daigle in London.
At the World Championships, Team Canada's ready to blast off. But now missing its biggest track star.
At some point you've got to admit that, this hurts, for sure.
Across town, Andre DeGrasse is speaking publicly for the first time about the injury that's forced him out.
I wanted to accomplish the, win the 100, win the 200, and, the guys were looking really strong, so I feel like we had a great shot in the 4x1 as well. But, things happen, for a reason, and I think you know, I'm not going to dwell on it.
The grass is close.
The hamstring tear means he'll miss a potentially career-defining race, the final 100-meter showdown with Usain Bolt.
Do you have a chance to win? Absolutely. Did he have a chance to get blown away? Absolutely. You know, it's and unfortunately we'll never know.
Another up-and-coming man, the 20-year-old from Canada.
Their careers have been intertwined since DeGrasse's debut at the World Championships 2 years ago. A surprise bronze medal win, and this memorable moment.
Sorry. Congrats, man. Congrats.
Did you even know who he was when the season started?
No. But man, listen. Great job. That's all I can say. Well done, man. Well done. Well done. Well done.
And they're away. Then, in Rio last year, the 200-meter semifinals.
And DeGrasse is going with a burst of speed. He's looking at the big man as they come to the line.
And that look that cemented what everyone thought was a bromance.
Smiling at one another as they cross the line.
Bolt, it seems, saw things differently, this week refusing to name his successor.
The last guy I said was going to be great disrespected me, so I'm not going to say who's going to be great.
At 22, DeGrasse's season may be over, but his career is not.
I was devastated when I heard the news, but, you know, as days go on, and, you know, it's getting better.
He'll return to a world without its current king, leaving more room near the top.
He wants to be the one to take over from Usain Bolt. So he will have to come and prove to the world that he's the one to beat.
DeGrasse will be returning to Canada in the coming days. In the meantime, his coach says he'll be playing video games, going to a soccer match, maybe even watching the 100-meter final on television. Then turning his attention to next season, his next chance to rise to the top. Thomas Dagg with CBC News, London.
Coming up, we ask Americans how Donald Trump is doing on the job.
If he worked in a corporate environment as I do, he would be fired. The board would fire him.
And competitive softball eases the pain of suicide for Indigenous youth in Manitoba.
Kids are crying out for help, and we need to step up to the plate as adults and as leaders.
Ottawa says Canada's reputation is on the line after months of endangered whales being found dead along the east coast. The federal government is promising to take all necessary steps to protect them. But conservation comes with a cost, putting any solution to save these whales in the direct path of some economic interests. Brett Ruskin explains.
For weeks, scenes like this have played out on East Coast beaches. 10 dead whales, with scientists wondering why.
Anybody who thinks that it's not extremely serious is very mistaken.
Minister Dominic LeBlanc took an aerial survey to observe some of the remaining 500 endangered North Atlantic right whales. 2% of the global population has wound up dead on Canadian coastlines since June. Preliminary reports suggest snow crab fishing gear may be one of the causes. This year, fishermen were allowed to catch twice as much as last year.
Whether it meant that there was more gear out there were more people physically out fishing, that's still information we're waiting for from Fisheries and Oceans Canada. But in the end, we had more right whales entangled in the Gulf than we probably ever had before.
The other issue is whales being hit by ships. Necropsy reports show some of the whales died of blunt trauma, likely from impacts with large vessels. Protecting these mammals from busy shipping lanes is an upstream battle. LeBlanc has asked companies to slow to 10 knots when passing through whale habitats, but some companies have decided not to comply.
If we were to do that, that's half speed, which is double the time, and a 7-day service would become something much longer. So the impacts would be huge financially as well directly, because time is money.
Underpinning all of this is pressure from south of the border. Last year, the United States passed a law that allows it to ban seafood imports if it's found that the fishing process kills or significantly injures marine mammals.
And if a country doesn't take its responsibilities, then one of the potential remedies is a restriction into the U.S. market.
That means protecting the whales and saving Canada's $500 million a year snow crab fishery have both reached a critical stage. Brett Ruskin, CBC News, Halifax.
A Reuters investigation says legally innocent prisoners are dying by the hundreds in Canadian jails. Provincial data compiled by Reuters shows nearly 270 people awaiting trial in jails over the past 5 years have died before getting a verdict. Of the causes of death that are known, 50 were suicides, 34 were natural causes, including illness, 4 were homicides. More than 40 remain undetermined pending an investigation. Toronto Mayor John Tory held emergency talks today with first responders to get a handle on the city's growing opioid crisis. There have been 6 deaths and at least 20 drug-related overdoses this past week alone. As Cass Rusey reports, frontline workers are scrambling to get in front of the crisis.
I just want to kind of give a little bit of a visual around what the opioid crisis looks like.
In a downtown conference room in Toronto, an emergency training session on how to prevent an opioid overdose.
1, 2, 3.
With the go-to antidote, naloxone, part of the show and tell. In the audience, frontline workers, social workers, even drug users are shown how to administer it. Crucial information, because the drug can reverse an opioid overdose in seconds.
And then put your thumb on the plunger and push.
For frontline workers in Toronto, this is the new reality, witnessing an escalation in injection drug use and abuse.
Our staff are trained to be able to administer naloxone to an individual who's experiencing an overdose. Unfortunately, it is something that we've had to do with more frequency.
In the past week, there have been at least 20 overdoses. 6 people have died. The suspected culprit, the opioid fentanyl laced with heroin. Unimaginable tragedy, says Toronto's mayor, who today convened an emergency meeting with his first responders to discuss the city's growing opioid crisis.
Right.
John Tory committed to bulk buying naloxone and distributing the kits to all necessary city personnel and speed up the opening of 3 supervised injection sites.
I don't think there's any magic answer to this. Our obligation is to do whatever we can to speed up or change what we're doing to save lives.
At this harm reduction site, drug users are provided with take-home naloxone kits. It will soon become one of the 3 supervised injection sites.
They feel that this is a real crisis for them. It's a threat to them, and they want to try to keep themselves safe.
But the city is being criticized for not taking the situation more seriously, despite the ongoing crisis that has been well documented in Vancouver and other places.
I remember when SARS came out, there was notices posted up and saying, these are the symptoms. If this happens, this is what you need to do. We don't see that here.
But with a public health emergency at its doorstep, officials have now responded, hoping to prevent the next overdose death in the city. Cass Rusey, CBC News, Toronto.
And later in the program, Vancouver's desperate fight against fentanyl. For a paramedic saving lives, the daily grind gets awfully raw. There are more signs that Toronto's blazing hot real estate market is indeed cooling off. Sales have dropped dramatically, down 40% compared to a year ago. And now prices are starting to drop as well. The CBC's Jacqueline Hansen has more on what's driving the trend.
This tiny detached home on the west side of Toronto, listed for $820,000, has been waiting for a buyer for more than a month.
I'm sitting on a gem.
This real estate broker set up an open house this morning to try to show it off, but no one showed up.
It makes absolutely no sense. I have a beautiful home on the market in a beautiful neighborhood. It's turnkey.
It's a big change for a city that has been known for bidding wars that help drive prices higher and higher. Analysts expected that to change 10 months ago when new rules forced buyers with small down payments to prove they could still pay if interest rates went up. But demand stayed strong and prices jumped by double digits, hitting a peak in April.
I'm deeply concerned about
that anxiety prompted the Ontario government to step in, introducing a foreign buyers tax to decrease some demand. Uncertainty followed, listings poured onto the market, and sales began to slow. Today's report shows sales are down even further in July. Average prices have also plunged since their April high.
I think most of what we're seeing in Toronto's housing market, the cool down, especially in the detached market, is psychological. It's simply a reaction to concerns that the government's actions taken in April to cool the market will actually do that. I don't think it's in direct response to the policies themselves.
In Vancouver, a similar situation has already played out. A foreign buyer's tax took effect 1 year ago. Prices in Vancouver cooled, but only temporarily.
Toronto's market is responding a little more. That could be a reflection of perhaps earlier levels of mania in the market, greater levels of domestic speculation.
Even still, average home prices in Toronto are up slightly from a year ago, and condo prices jumped more than 20%. A sign, perhaps, that, like Vancouver, Toronto's cool down just may be short-lived. Jacqueline Hansen, CBC News, Toronto.
Tourists in Victoria jumped into action to prevent a possible harbor disaster yesterday. Their boat unexpectedly caught fire next to a gas storage area. They pushed the 12-meter vessel across the harbor, where it sank along the shoreline. The Victoria Fire Department says their actions saved the fuel dock. Straight ahead, Donald Trump is desperate for a win. We look at where he might get one.
Well, time now for a little ride on the information highway. You might think it's a trip that requires all sorts of complicated electronic gadgetry, but then you might want to think again. Here's Ron Charles with tonight's Canada Online.
Music rack. You can talk to it, and it will listen to you. It will wake you up in the morning, play music, and play the latest multimedia computer programs.
I think it's a way to the future, especially with the children.
This new type of computer marks a turning point for big manufacturers. They now call them home appliances. This computer even has on-screen TV, letting people watch while they work. The big companies are hoping gadgets like this, along with easy-to-use programs, will help them break into the lucrative home market.
The home market is the largest growing market, again, because more and more people are embracing computer technology, because what it is today, what it was, as opposed to what it was 10 years ago. So I see it becoming a very common appliance.
Hello, we're unable to take your call right now.
Companies like Packard Bell say their computers will be the answer for people riding the next high-tech wave, the information superhighway, offering home services such as shopping, banking, entertainment, even multimedia. But computer companies aren't alone. There's a race on to provide the engine people will use on the information highway.
You've got the phone company, you've got the cable company, you've got the television broadcasters, and now you've got the computer manufacturers as well as the software makers.
You can scan through the movie in terms of fast forward.
Silicon Graphics is convinced its horse will win the race to connect the continent, but not with computers. It's working on something that will be much more familiar to people.
They would be compelled to use the information highway on the basis of a machine, a box in the living room that is custom designed for that purpose. It's not a computer, it's essentially a hybrid of a TV set with computer internals.
But computer makers still think 70% of homes will have computers by the end of the century, and they hope the fancy gadgets in their new machines will help them do a lot of that selling right now. Ron Charles, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, as you saw earlier, the stakes are getting higher for Donald Trump's administration, with a grand jury now investigating the Russia-Trump connection. It caps off a turbulent 2 weeks when the White House seemed to have a revolving door.
We just swore in General Kelly. He will do a spectacular job, I have no doubt, as Chief of Staff.
John Kelly's first order of business was to fire Anthony Scaramucci, the foul-mouthed communications director who embarrassed his boss in record time. And don't forget, he had just replaced another troublesome spokesman. Then, that crushing failure to repeal Obamacare. Yesterday, a return to basics with a message this president knows how to sell.
I campaigned on creating a merit-based immigration system that protects U.S. workers and taxpayers, and that is why we are here today.
Seems the Trump White House is trying to hit the reset button. The question now, how will it work?
And joining me to talk all things Trump, my colleague Keith Bogue, who sits across from me when I'm where I normally work in our Washington bureau. Never a good time to leave Washington, is there, Keith?
Never a good time. We miss you here, Paul. So much has happened.
I'll be back soon. Look, to kick things off here, let's play another quick clip by Anthony Scaramucci from his call-in to CNN this week. This clip didn't get a lot of play because there was so much else in that phone call, but let's play the clip and then we'll talk about it after.
There are people inside the administration that think it is their job to save America from this president. Okay, that is not their job.
To save America from this president. What do you make of that, Keith?
Well, as you pointed out, there were a lot of other things in that call to CNN last week that were newsier and of the moment, but I think that is one that has an enduring quality because of what it says about the tone, the feeling of what's going on inside the administration. What an extraordinary thing to say, that there are people working for the president who also think they have to save the president, save the country rather, from him. It speaks of a kind of disloyalty, a kind of lack of trust, a lack of common purpose in the administration that, as I say, if you don't have those things, it's very hard to build them with a kind of instant reset by appointing, a new chief of staff. Those are deep, deep problems.
So, and now we've got this grand jury being impaneled. So, what happens? Are we going to see, one after the other, White House staffers going to march down and tell the grand jury everything they know, including all the leakers?
We might. I mean, I was here in the 90s, Paul, when Ken Starr was the special prosecutor looking into everything Clinton, and it became just about everything Clinton. There's a possibility that could happen here, too. Just because the grand jury is impaneled doesn't mean that's the end of the investigation. Both of those things will continue at the same time. And if you consider the kind of tension there must be in the White House because of the kinds of things that Scaramucci described in that clip, that will only intensify by several fold as people begin to start getting subpoenas or know people who are getting subpoenas, and they know they can't march down to the a grand jury panel and deflect questions or not be completely truthful about it. This is a serious thing. It's not like dealing with a press conference at all. They can't just ignore it. They got to lawyer up. They got to prepare for it. It's going to be a scary thing. It could go on for a long time, and it's, as I say, it's only going to make a pressure cooker of a White House that exists already even more so.
I often picture Donald Trump in the Oval Office or somewhere watching the different news networks, and his head is just about to explode or something, right, as the fury kind of builds. But this grand jury, so I understand it, can go anywhere or almost anywhere, right? But Trump has long said there are lines that ought not to be crossed, right?
Well, there are reports tonight that those lines are being crossed. The important one was that Trump felt that the special prosecutor should limit himself to the Russia question and not go into questions about Trump's past business dealings. But there are, as I say, reports tonight that that's exactly what the special prosecutor wants to know about, in addition to all of these other things. And just consider the length that Donald Trump has gone to try to protect that information from being seen by the public, refusing, first president in decades to refuse to release his tax returns, for instance, or to really divulge much about what is probably the most enormous business portfolio of any president in modern history.
All right, Keith, I appreciate it. I'll see you soon, and we'll keep talking about this story. Thanks.
Take care, Paul.
Well, that's enough from politicians and dratted journalists. Let's hear some voices that really count. For a grassroots read on the president, we spoke to Americans visiting the U.S. Capitol.
I was in the Hall of Presidents over the National Portrait Gallery, and just thinking about our current president and the practices going on in the White House, and seeing all the prior presidents that we had, and how in times of turmoil and in times of disagreement, the demeanor they had, the honor they had, it's really an embarrassment for us to have the president that we have now.
Yes. Yeah.
Hey, thank you so much.
I'm kind of mixed on the president. However, I feel that he has been obstructed at every way he's tried to do things.
I definitely think like reading papers or watching the news, makes it seem like everything's going crazy, but just kind of standing here looking around, it just looks like business as usual, honestly.
I'll tell you when to stop. Go down.
You know, he does what he says he's going to do, and I agree with, what he says he's going to do. He's a man of honor.
He's so different than other presidents. The direction that he takes, it's so volatile, it's so coarse, it's so boorish that, it's not presidential at all.
There's no real leadership. If he worked in a corporate environment as I do, he would be fired. The board would fire him as a CEO. So, but he's the president, so it's a little bit different standard. I have a lot of friends that want him to be impeached, and I'm like, I don't think that's going to happen.
Coming up, some tough love for kids who've been through a lot.
You guys are going to have to pull together here. You guys are way too relaxed. Your swings are not up to par.
Softball gives structure to boys from a First Nation racked by suicide. Plus, Venezuela's leader is accused of building a dictatorship. Do other countries have a duty to stop him? Let's check today's business numbers. The TSX edged down 73 points. The dollar decreased 0.1 cent. In New York, the Dow hit another new record high, and the price of oil decreased 56 cents a barrel.
A new disease with some old familiar symptoms has struck teenage girls around the world. The disease is called Duranitis, and the symptoms are screaming, swooning, and tears of ecstasy. It strikes whenever the British rock band Duran Duran appears. This week, thousands of Calgary teenagers fell victim when Duran Duran opened its North American tour in that city. Marion Coomey reports.
Simon, Andy, Nick, John, and Roger are Duran Duran, a popular British rock group. They've been dubbed the Fab Five, but such comparisons to the Beatles aren't because the music is similar, it's because of the girls. Since there's been music aimed at young people, there have been screaming fans. They swooned over Frank Sinatra in the 40s. In the 60s, fans created a new word, Beatlemania, for their love of John, Paul, George, and Ringo. Today, they're called Duranis.
They're very, very dedicated to us. And they hang around in hotels, waiting for us to come down and follow us when we go out shopping, things like that.
And we certainly have a lot of young fans, and I wouldn't swap them for anything in the world.
What's wrong with 14-year-old girls?
15-year-old Laurie Evans and 17-year-old Julia Kim are dedicated Duran Duran fans. They've read all the articles ever written on their idols. Laurie's room is full of posters, pictures, buttons, all the records, even Duran Duran shoes.
I used to think that people who had posters and listened to and bought all the albums were a little bit spinny and not quite in touch with reality and were groupies. But then when Duran Duran came along, it didn't seem like that. I'm not quite sure why, actually.
Because I'm supposed to be the stable type, like not go crazy over Duran Duran or, you know.
And so do you think it makes you seem unstable because you really like a rock group?
Yeah, they're seeing the other side of me.
More than 8,000 Duran Duran fans, most of them under 18, went to the Olympic Saddle Dome to hear what the band calls their music without a message. They willingly lined up to buy $25 sweatshirts and other souvenirs, and then pushed their way into $15 seats to await their heroes.
Ladies and gentlemen of Canada, this Calgary tonight is the beginning of our North American tour.
Do you get tired of being associated with, their 5 great-looking guys?
I get a bit, I think sometimes, I've got a little bit more to offer than just that.
Some rock critics say that to become a long-term success, Duran Duran will have to change its image as a teeny bopper group. But for now, they remain young, good-looking, clean-cut, well-dressed, musically adept, full of catchy, danceable tunes, the stuff teen fantasies are made of.
Possibly the best concert in history of civilization as we know it, okay? It was awesome. It was unbelievable. And Simon LeBlanc is so gorgeous, it isn't even funny.
El estúpido presidente de Smartmatic.
Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro went on a tirade on state television, blasting the country's chief prosecutor for launching a fraud investigation over Sunday's election results. The move comes after the company that supplied voting machines to Venezuela revealed voter turnout numbers were manipulated by more than 1 million votes. That's just the latest sensational development as Venezuela continues its slide into chaos. Right now, the entire country is in lockdown. People are afraid to leave their homes, and the few that do end up clashing with police. More than 120 people have been killed in protests, another 5,000 detained. The number of political prisoners is mounting as well, close to 500 in total, including the leaders of both opposition parties. It all has international critics using the word dictatorship. For more on just how serious this situation is, I'm joined by Stephen Gibbs in Caracas, a journalist with the Times of London, and Ben Rosewell here in studio, former Canadian ambassador to Venezuela. Ben, I'm going to start with you. I say former, but you left Caracas yesterday. You just got back to Canada, right?
Just days ago, that's right.
Can you get us to how we got here today? Give us the skinny on how Venezuela has spiraled to where it is.
Sure. If I may, let me just say off the bat that I think this is a situation that concerns all Canadians because it shows us where populism leads. Whenever they get into power, populist leaders will do everything that they possibly can to stay in power, no matter the damage that it does to their countries or to their governments. This, in the case of Venezuela, is a government that was elected democratically in 2013. Nicolas Maduro did win a majority of the vote. But since then, the country has suffered the worst economic collapse in its entire history, an economic calamity that's greater than the Depression was. They've lost 40% of their entire economy. Naturally, in that period of time, Venezuelans have been anxious for change. And that put the government of Maduro in an awkward position where it had to choose between remaining democratic or remaining in power. And it chose to remain in power.
So we have the vote on Sunday. Stephen, what does that vote tell you about the Maduro government?
Well, if you look at the result, it suggests that the government is prepared to sort of fiddle the results. They say that 8 million people voted for this constituent assembly. That's a vote without an opposition. And immediately the opposition here said that sounds sort of implausible, particularly if you think that in the end of 2015, there was a parliamentary election. 5.6 million people voted for the government then. They actually lost that parliamentary election. The opposition got into power in the National Assembly. The idea that the government can go from 5.6 million to 8 million in such a short time in the background where it's a very unpopular government, as the ambassador said, of the biggest, the steepest recession, steeper recession than the Depression, it seemed completely unbelievable. And we then, of course, got the confirmation of that, really, when one of the CEO of Smartmatic, the company that provides the machines, electoral machines for Venezuela, itself said it does look like the numbers don't really add up. So as the government goes forward, it's already, this Constituent Assembly was a very controversial move, but the way it was formed, the way it was elected, has also caused more controversy.
You know, Stephen, we've seen the pictures of the streets of Caracas. You're out there every day. Describe what it's like.
Well, I mean, in the last 4 months since these latest protests began, you see protests almost every day. You see these kind of barricades on the street. People are encouraged to barricade their own streets. Whether that achieves anything, you know, that's another question. In terms of the daily life, yeah, you know, everything is in short supply. The people who are going to be being hit hardest by this are the people who have the least amount of money. Basics in the shops like rice or pasta or cooking oil becoming unaffordable. Today, the bolivar against the dollar dropped another 18% in one day. So rapidly, we're seeing the currency completely lose all its value. And then you have the other issue of security. So in the evening here at night, there's a sort of auto curfew. People don't really go out. You might go from one spot to another that you know, but you'd be amazed just how empty the streets are, particularly at night.
And Ben, you know, I mean, in a way, I don't know if lucky is the right word, but Stephen's one of the lucky journalists because he is in there. We've tried to get in. It's hard getting visas. Do you think, so thus attention on Venezuela is diminished, right? Because it's hard getting in there for journalists. Do you think the world has forgotten about Venezuela?
Well, there certainly seems to be a spike of attention right now, but this is a long-standing crisis. It's been building for many years, and the international attention seems to sort of wax and wane. I think that our government is doing a very good job of trying to keep the spotlight on Venezuela. Minister Friedland has been extremely outspoken, one of the most outspoken foreign ministers. In our embassy, we've been real champions of human rights defenders, and we've used social media quite a bit to get the word out. You know, in a situation like this where our government's becoming more autocratic, they want to control the message and they want to shut down the story, which is why they're keeping journalists out of the country. And in that case, one of the roles of an embassy is to get the word out. And so I think our government has been trying to do that as much as possible. And we do see some international attention now. The question will be whether it can be sustained through what will take probably several months, maybe even years, to resolve itself before the government of Maduro is under enough pressure to finally concede elections and to allow the citizens of Venezuela once again to choose who their government is.
Man, I mean, the question everybody's wondering is, like, is it going to spiral forever and become a failed state? I mean, Stephen, I wonder what the way forward is. Where does this go from here?
I think everyone agrees that at some stage there's got to be some agreement between the supporters of the opposition and the people in the government that are prepared to have a real proper discussion with the opposition. Right now, there doesn't seem to be much sign of that, and you really do feel that the very senior people in the government, many of whom have been sanctioned by the United States, and there may be a sort of downside to that, there's kind of no escape for them. So they're just driving this on and on and on. They're not really reaching out to the opposition. And, you know, how will it end? It will end, I'm sure, ultimately in negotiation. But right now, they're further apart than they've really ever been. And this Constituent Assembly has become an incredibly controversial thing. It's forming tomorrow. It will have supreme power over this entire country, more power than any other institution. It can do a whole lot of things. It could, and the President Maduro has mentioned this, it can lift immunity from all the people in the current National Assembly. So we may get to a stage where you have elected parliamentarians feeling that they need to go into exile or hiding, and then the whole thing gets even more serious.
Thank you both. That was unsettling, but it was good to hear your viewpoints. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Up next, a race against time to save lives in Vancouver. Every second counts when someone's in the grip of an overdose.
Most of the teenagers that we talked to last spring were very scathing about the kind of sex education that they got, both from their parents at home and at school.
I think they try to keep us naive as long as possible. At 12 and 13, I think we're ready to learn about the actual physical thing of sex.
Most people, by the time they get to a grade 11 or 12, have gone out before anyhow.
Teenagers are getting their sex education from each other, and it is freely available to them on the newsstands. I feel I can give my kids the values they need when sex is the issue, but I cannot begin to give them the facts they need. That can only come from trained specialists using a curriculum as carefully planned as the maths course.
The dilemma facing young people today, sexuality. More adolescents are sexually active. By 16, most kids have had their first sexual experience, yet many of them are not sexually responsible. 85% of teenagers don't use any form of contraception.
During intercourse, the sperm are deposited inside the female.
A lot of people think the course is going to encourage sex, but it doesn't. If it does anything, it turns you right off.
The whole idea of birth control is to prevent fertilization.
They're being taught without the same morals that I would want my children to be taught under.
How do you feel you would perform in bed with two females?
Well, I personally think I'm pretty good.
Do you think you could?
Her name is Sue Johansson, and for the last year and a half, she spent her Sunday evenings answering questions, every imaginable question about sex.
I want to know how it'd have to be to have an abortion.
I picked up this prostitute, and I noticed that I have these cold sores on the inside of my lips.
They tell her things they'd never tell another living soul. She says the reason is simple.
Because they're desperate. They can't find anybody else that they can really open up to, who will trust, who will not put them down.
If you would give it to them straight, I think you'd have a lot less trouble with people going wrong afterwards, not really knowing what is happening.
Everything's all right.
What do you think of the paramedics who were able to revive her?
Paramedics are awesome, man.
It's now been more than a year since British Columbia declared a public health emergency, and yet the number of dead from suspected drug overdoses has gone up. Despite the bleak signs, there are still some quiet victories. When a paramedic arrives with minutes to spare, they can pull victims away from the brink. Earlier this year, our Natalie Clancy followed paramedics racing to the front lines of the opioid crisis. And here's another look at her story.
On Alpha 1, Robson and Burrard.
This is the most stressful part of the job, getting to the call.
Brian Thwaites has no idea how many of the 914 deaths last year happened on his shift. The 30-year veteran paramedic refuses to keep count.
There's a lot of the times where it's just too late and we can't get their heart to restart.
How often is that in your case?
It happens frequently.
Thwaites has special training in advanced life support and travels alone in an SUV to back up paramedics on complex calls.
Overdoses come in as a very critical emergency in our system. They're not breathing and literally are quite close to death.
We actually bring the emergency room to you in the street.
He carries a $40,000 monitor that will be useful on his next patient who is not breathing in a public washroom.
Excuse me. How are we doing there? Got a good pulse?
Yeah, we got a pulse.
Has she got the Narcan yet?
Thwaites draws up the Narcan shot he hopes will revive her.
0.8 here. Do you want to take care of that? And I'll chart that on here so we got a time on my monitor for you. It's going to be a couple of minutes until she starts to wake here.
Well, she was like pretty much face down on the floor.
Okay. I'm just going to take that for a sec. Do you want to just check the back of her head? Just make sure we don't get any big bumps there.
This woman is fortunate. Her friends started to worry and found her here. A few more minutes alone in this washroom would have been too late.
Hi, hon. Hi, it's okay.
Relax. You're given Narcan, my dear.
Okay, you're all right. Just relax.
Okay, just relax. You got an airway in your mouth. You can pull that out. Pull it out. Tube in your mouth. Pull out the tube.
It still took probably about 5 minutes, I think, after the Narcan for her to wake up.
Hey!
Her reaction to her very close call says it all.
He's just outside. There's nobody in the bathroom right now.
Are you okay, guys? Please go with me. Mama, I never leave you.
They haven't had a lot of oxygen circulating through their brain, so they're quite confused. And so they wake up confused in the middle, and in this case, of a bathroom floor, not knowing what's going on with a whole bunch of strange faces looking at them. And I would imagine I know I'd be alarmed.
Why is she strapped in there? Whoa!
Hey man, don't get upset, okay? Everything's all right.
Her frantic friend says he had also overdosed himself earlier in the day.
To kill some nerves, to kill some stress or whatever. Went under and I didn't see it coming, and she went under for a little bit, but she's back now.
How long was she down?
Give or take 30 minutes, 45 minutes, as far as when everybody showed up. And
what do you think of the paramedics who were able to revive her?
Paramedics are awesome, man. Take care, you guys.
Twait says she made the most deadly mistake a drug user can make. She used alone.
That's a sad thing. Nobody wants to die alone. And a lot of these people are, unfortunately.
Come on, buddy, come back.
Like this man who was long gone before anyone found him in a public washroom. Twaits thinks deaths spiked in November and December because cold weather forced users indoors to use in places where no one will see them collapse.
Or somebody didn't phone 911 soon enough. I've seen cases where people have gone running to find a Narcan kit instead of phoning 911, and tragic outcomes because there's a telephone in the lobby of the building, but they elected to run somewhere else and find a Narcan kit.
His advice to loved ones is call 911 first, and dispatchers will tell you how to keep the patient alive until the paramedics arrive.
Narcan is great, but it's oxygen. The deprivation of oxygen is what's killing these people.
He also fears some users are afraid to call 911, afraid of police.
The police aren't worried about the fact that you've overdosed to get you in trouble. They're the same as us. They want to see you get some help. Okay, can't find them?
They were up and breathing on their own, but there's nobody here.
His next patient took off before he got there, on a block where anyone in a uniform is not welcome.
Go around the other side. They're getting really agitated. We gotta go. There's stuff being thrown. It's in every community, and it affects all walks of life. Addiction is a horrible thing.
This shift alone, he attended 22 overdose calls. He shares his secret to getting through every one of them.
I always think back that whoever that we're dealing with at some point was a little baby that was being bounced on somebody's knee, right? This was somebody's family. And that helps.
Natalie Clancy, CBC News, Vancouver.
Still to come, a Manitoba softball team that carries the hopes of a province and of a small Indigenous community.
Tomorrow, Coca-Cola Company will tell a thirsty world it's putting a smoother, sweeter taste into the most instantly recognizable bottle in the world.
This has got to be the boldest consumer product move of any kind, of any stripe, since Eve started to hand out apples.
Here they drag out all the hoopla, thinking that they're going to war against the arch-rival Pepsi. But it turns out they've picked a fight in their own backyard with their best friends.
I can't tell the difference between the new taste of Coke and the old taste of Pepsi.
Why are you upset about it?
My oldest daughter is 22. Her first word was Coke. Her second word was Mommy.
For decades, Coke has stayed on top by being cautious and conservative. Lately, though, Pepsi is growing faster than Coke. The Pepsi challenge is clearly hurting.
We made our choice, making it Pepsi.
Pepsi has captured a young, hip positioning that Coke, by nature of its corporate culture, is not really able to understand yet.
I put a Pepsi in the motion, but that choice is up to you. Hey.
And it must be every young boy's fantasy to turn around and see Michael Jackson. I mean, how wonderful.
The Coca-Cola Company is bringing back the real thing. For weeks, the company has been hyping the taste of its new formula Coke. But today it announced it's going to start selling the old Coke again under a new name.
We're bringing it back. The original taste of Coca-Cola returns as Coca-Cola Classic.
We have booster ignition and liftoff.
When the shuttle Challenger blasts off tomorrow, it will begin a new space race. On board will be 2 specially designed soft drink cans, one from Coke, the other from Pepsi, allowing astronauts to drink a carbonated beverage in the weightlessness of space for the first time.
It's the Cola Wars in action.
The supermarket shelf is the front line in the Cola War. Pepsi and Coke slugging it out in the world's longest-running business battle.
The National. The National.
Tonight.
New York's government sent a strong message today about wildlife poaching. Environment officials crushed about 2 tons of ivory in Central Park. The artifacts were crafted from tusks of about 100 elephants. While the ivory trade was banned back in 1989, the U.S. remains the 2nd largest black market for it, behind China. At this week's Canada Summer Games, you'll find a squad entirely made up of Indigenous athletes. Manitoba's softball team, and almost all of them are from Pima-Chicamac, a small northern community that declared a state of emergency last year after 6 suicides. Brett Purdy has more.
It's been a steep learning curve for Manitoba's softball team.
You guys have to learn to battle right to the end here.
It leads to a mid-inning pep talk from coach Leroy Muswag. They lost this game after being ahead, and the club isn't performing how they wanted to in this year's games. But for coach, getting here was half the battle.
The road hasn't been easy. It's been humble beginnings for all of us, the players, the coaches.
This program started a decade ago on a dusty field in the remote Pima-Chicamac community at Cross Lake. Last year, a state of emergency was declared after 6 young people died by suicide. Some say the ball team is a big reason many teens have been able to cope.
Kids are crying out for help, and we need to step up to the plate as adults and as leaders to help them out and take that time to walk with them and come down to their level.
First baseman Justin Nakbar says last year's state of emergency was a hard time at home.
When that all started happening, we had to fight through it together and keeping positive always every time and not trying to be down on all the time.
He says last year one of their teammates lost a close friend and left the team. Players worked hard to get their teammate back on the field.
We just kept talking and say, hey, we need you, man. We need you on our team. You're a good ball player. We kept saying to him, and we did as much as we can just to help him out.
The softball program at Cross Lake has grown from just a few teams to being one of the biggest softball programs in the province. The team has won 2 gold medals in Western Canadian Championships in the last 3 years and are starting to compete in other national tournaments. But the kids are more important than medals.
It's more about building character and building self-esteem in these young men that I coach. And it's just about teaching them about survival on and off the field and how they overcome adversity.
Regardless of how they finish at these games, this team will head to PEI next week for the Under-18 National Championship and continue to build the belief that they too can swing for the fences. Brett Purdy, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, in Brazil, he's more widely known than the Pope, and now the football phenom known simply as Neymar has become the most expensive athlete in the world. Barcelona sold their 25-year-old star to Paris Saint-Germain for a world record price of 222 million euros, and that's just the price of acquiring the rights to him. Paris will also be giving him a whopping 45 million euros a year. Nicely played. That's The National for this Thursday night. For news at any hour, you can always go to cbcnews.ca. I'm Paul Hunter. Good night.